This Saturday morning, well before 8 a.m., runners will line up near the bell tower at UNC Chapel Hill for a race. It's the Tar Heel 10-miler, though you can run 14 miles if you prefer. And today's deep dive conversation is about that race and about running culture in general. I'm joined here on the Daily Download by Ali Ingersoll, data reporter here at WRAL, and more to the point at the moment, a hardcore runner and the MC for Saturday's Tar Heel 10-miler. Welcome, Ali.
Thanks for having me, Travis. Super excited to be here.
Let's start off with your bona fides here. How many miles do you run a week?
I usually average about 55 to 65 miles per week during my off season, which is now.
That's the off season?
Yeah. When I peak for marathon training, I'll get into high 70s, low 80s.
Ooh, it makes my knees hurt just thinking about it. Are you running on the roads? Are you running on sidewalks, in the woods, all of the above, morning, night? How do you fit that much in?
I'm a morning runner usually. Actually, I was thinking about this past weekend as my alarm went off at 3:45 in the morning on a Saturday morning, that this is just insane, right? If you would have told me 3 years ago that these would be my Saturdays where I'm waking up at 3:45 to eat a peanut butter sandwich before going to run 12 miles, I would have been like, that's absolutely not my life. I road run usually, so sidewalks, streets. Sometimes I'll head up to the ATT and run the Tobacco Trail. It's just a little easier on your knees, super flat, a lot of great facilities there as well. But primarily I run on the road or the greenways here in the city or just the roads. It really varies on the time that I'm going out. But with those early morning starts, it's usually downtown.
All right, I want to talk a lot more about that transition from this is insanity to I love it and can't live without it. But tell me a little bit first about this race, about the 10-miler. It's on UNC's campus in Chapel Hill. I'm guessing that means pretty hilly course.
Yeah, pretty hilly course. A lot of people, they've been training hills to get ready for this. I run with Fleet Feet, and I mentor people who are getting into running or trying to make themselves faster. So we had this big group this year, and this is our key race. I think there were about 200 people training for this who I trained with. So we did many hill repeats to get ready for this. I haven't done it before. So last year when this was going on, I wasn't running at the time because I was injured. So I'm pretty nervous but excited. It'll be fun just to get out there, explore Chapel Hill like this. I really think this is the best way to see any city is running because cities usually put them through their most scenic routes. So just to kind of wander around Chapel Hill and the campus and see all the staples there. And
you're going to MC, so you'll do a little rigmarole before the race, and you'll count everybody down, and then you get in there and you run it too.
Yeah, I've done this for a couple of our races. I MC this race, the City of Oaks and Bull City, and I usually count down. I'm there when we're doing the national anthem, and then I hop right through those little bars, and as everyone else is starting, I'm starting that race too. And then I finish the run, and I get back out there and call people's names and welcome them back and talk about my running experience, bring over some people. I'm seeing with Joe Fisher this race, so super excited. He's a big runner
fellow
as well.
WRAL reporter Joe Fisher, reporter extraordinaire.
Yes, yeah.
And I want to talk a little bit more about that. Well, people can still sign up for this race, by the way, as we're recording this and as you're hearing it. We'll tell you how to do that in a minute. And then we're going to talk more about running culture, but we are going to take a quick break first. All right, welcome back to the Daily Download. We're talking to Ali Ingersoll, one of WRAL's runners in residence here among the reporting ranks. And how did you get into running? You said it's only been the last few years, right?
Yeah.
What happened?
So there's this big race in Philadelphia where I'm from called the Broad Street Run. And I was never a runner growing up. I briefly did track and field, maybe for 2 seasons. And I was like, no, not for me. I played a bunch of sports, but the running part of it was just not the fun part. So this race comes up in 2015, 2016. A bunch of my sorority sisters, they're like, hey, Al, let's do this. And I'm like, yeah, 10 miles? Absolutely not. And it's a lottery. And so I signed up with all of my sisters, and I was the only one who got selected. Oh. And I didn't know how to train. I ran 2 miles twice before that, so a total of 4 training miles to go run 10. Day of comes, I'm like, I don't know what to do here. So I was like, okay, run the 5K part of it, run 3.1 miles. And I was like, then I told myself mentally, I was like, you can walk then. I just had this runner's high though. You get out there, there's 40,000 people, the streets are lined, and you're like, this is great. And you don't feel the pain in your legs. I don't know. It's just this moment where you're having the time of your life. And so I ran 8 miles of the 10, walked a mile, and then ran it out. And I was like, that's great. We'll never do anything farther than 10 miles. next year comes around, don't get into the lottery. One of my sisters like convinces me to do a half marathon, and now I've done over 20 half marathons and 3 full marathons.
And is it that runner's high? Is that the hook?
I think so for me. I am just so extroverted as well that I just love these racing days, and like you just get so excited for that, and that's really the reward. So there's so much that you don't see that goes into training. So far this year I'm just shy of 700 miles that I've already run, and that is to train for a race that's coming up in October. So by that time I will have run probably over 2,000 miles for my key race this year. And it's like I was saying before, like those 3-4 a.m. mornings where I'm waking up to do it. I will run, usually I do a long run on Wednesday morning, so I'll run 10 miles before the day even starts with work. It's just this stuff that no one really understands. And then you see the accomplishment, right? I post a lot about my races and talk a lot about my running that way, but there's so much more that goes into it. And I think just with the way we move around a lot, it's a great way to meet people.
Yeah, and there's a real community here. That's one of the things that gets me is how common kind of really, I would call it extreme distance running. Maybe people wouldn't use the word extreme there. But I'm just long distance running really seems to be a fairly tight-knit group, but also not a small group. There's a lot of people that do this, that enjoy this, that this is their biggest hobby.
Yeah, we say we're hobby joggers, but I mean, running this many miles is not really a hobby jogger. But yeah, I think it's this great sense of community. And I like to say that the Raleigh running community is unmatched. I've lived so many different places and have never experienced something like this. There are run groups every single day of the week that you can find. There's great trails here, great places to run, and you'll go out there any weather and you will never be alone on a place running. It's fantastic.
And what sort of reputation do we have, the Triangle, North Carolina, outside the state, in the running world proper? I mean, obviously we don't have like the Boston Marathon. I grew up in Atlanta, Peachtree Road Race. I don't know that we have anything that high profile. How big is running culture in this area versus other places?
I would say that people know the American Tobacco Trail quite a bit as a great place to run. We have elites who run here who've just run on that because it is so fantastic. My coach is based out of Minnesota, and he asked me recently how often I run that because he knows of it. So I think just the training here is really good. Umstead is a great place to train. Malcolm Gladwell was here a couple months ago, and he posted something being like, Raleigh, you don't know how good you have it here about Umstead.
That's the well-known author who I guess is also a runner?
I guess so, yeah. So that was really great to see Umstead getting a shout out from him. There are these shirts that say Umstead makes champions because it really does. It's this place that can make or break you. I like to think that I'm in the Hunger Games when I'm in there because these trees are just so tall and you're out there and you kind of have to like mentally be locked in so you're not tripping over things. But you'll go during winter break or spring break and there's students from all over, like universities all over, training there.
Umstead really is an incredible place, and there's a couple of entrances on either side. I don't run it personally. I walk it, but it is just an absolutely gorgeous place. If you live in the Triangle and haven't been there, you should definitely go. What you mentioned that you mentor a little bit. What is your advice for new runners? Kind of your standard stuff, things to avoid. What sort of pace? How long before your first race, if you get into it, should you train? Stuff like that.
So I would definitely recommend training. There have been way too many times I did not train for a race and I was hurting many, many days after. My first step of advice is to go get fitted for a good pair of running shoes. That can make all the difference, and you really don't realize it until you're fitted for a shoe that fits your foot and your stride. That's really my biggest piece of advice for anyone who's starting out. Just have a good pair of shoes and then just enjoy it and have fun and figure out your why. Why do you run? What does it mean to you? Yeah,
the shoe thing. I wear very heavily padded shoes just through my daily life. I take care of your feet, folks. Umstead, if you take nothing else from me on this, Umstead is awesome. Take care of your feet because if you don't, you will be miserable. But there's all sorts of different types of shoe. It is so much more nuanced than I think I realized.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. People like to say that this is a really inexpensive sport, but I mean, once you start getting into the shoe game, it's just wild. My race shoes are just shy of $300. And then my other running shoes, you're supposed to rotate them out every 400 miles. So I'm going through shoes all the time.
Oh, wow. Wow. The social aspect of it. I mean, you talk a lot while you're running in a group. And I mean, isn't it kind of hard to talk and run at the same time?
So it's conversation pace, right? So it's supposed to be if you're talking when you're running and you're training like that, then race day comes and you're not, and you have all that aerobic energy that you're usually expending talking to people that you can just really go out there and hit the gas and go fast. But yeah, you get to know these people in ways. And I think that you already have this common bond, right? You already have one thing in common, and then you can just find out so much more about them. And I think it's great. I've been in run clubs here in London. Every single place I move to, the first thing I do is find a run club and find the Penn State Alumni Association.
All right. Well, like I said, y'all can still sign up for the Tar Heel 10 miler. You just search that on the internet. It should pop right up. The 10 miler starts at 7:45 a.m. The 4 miler starts at 7:15 a.m. And if you want to do both, you can double down, they call it. Are you doubling down?
I'm not doubling down, but I want to quickly talk about the double down, because if you are doing that, you have to run the 4 miles in a certain time before you start the 10. So just a heads up that you got to really give it the gas for the 4 and then just go enjoy the scenes for the 10.
All right. Yes, just enjoy the scenes while you're running an additional 10 miles after 4. Tell everybody what you're going to do right after we record this.
I have to go run.
I don't think anybody's surprised by that. Allie, thank you so much for your time with us today. And thank you, folks, for listening to the WRAL Daily Download. If you want to hear about things to do, places to visit, restaurants to enjoy in North Carolina, particularly in the Triangle, please check out WRAL Out and About. It's a weekly podcast from us at WRAL News. You can find WRAL Out and About in your podcast app. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your attention.